Hey guys, welcome to episode 4 of Big Deal Real Estate. You're here because you believe you can make it as a real estate investor or entrepreneur, just like myself. The goal for this show is to introduce you to the ideas and tactics implemented by successful real estate investors and entrepreneurs that you can use for yourself to generate wealth for you and your families. So, my next guest today is one that I referenced back in episode 1 when I told you guys about how when I went to my first real estate investors meeting, I drove right by the office because I was so nervous the first time, but then eventually I built up the courage, turned around and came in, and the rest is history from there. So the person that I'm interviewing today has a long track record with history. He's an awesome wholesaler. I would consider him probably the best wholesaler of real estate in New England. And I don't think it would be a stretch to say he's one of the best on the East Coast. So I'd like to introduce you to one of my mentors, Scott Barney. Hey, Scott.
Hey, Kyle.
Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you.
So for all the viewers back home, can you just tell us a little bit about what it is that you do in real estate?
Well, basically, I just, look for situations where properties can be bought or sold, or if there's a situation where someone needs to get rid of a property, how we can basically help them out.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, use creative financing of some sort or some type of creative solution to make it a win-win scenario for everybody involved.
Mm-hmm. And how long have you been doing real estate?
Well, about 20 years actually, but the first part of that was while I was still a commercial lobsterman.
Mm-hmm.
And that was back when I had good credit and cash flow coming in from my business. So we were, buying apartment buildings and then using the equity in that building to buy the next one. And we accumulated quite a few. And then unfortunately what we did was we sold the properties and ended up rolling the money that we made from them back into the commercial fishing business that I had.
Mm-hmm.
And so then that went bad pretty quick, mainly because I lost the passion for it.
Mm-hmm.
So we basically were out of money, no credit, nothing. We were down to mac and cheese basically with the kids. And then I had been reading books about real estate investing more. While I was out on the boat fishing, I'd be reading books about buying and selling properties creatively. And this was pretty much before there was like YouTube and all this stuff for all this information that everybody has now. But I bought a course on an infomercial from Carlton Sheets.
Mm-hmm.
And that was sort of my introduction to the whole thing of personal development and creative real estate investing. And so when I was out of money and out of credit, the only thing I could think of to do to get myself out of that situation was real estate.
Mm-hmm.
So I always tell people, real estate, I don't care what excuse you come up with, there are ways to put together deals, whether you have money or credit or anything. So it's really just a decision.
Sure, it's a mindset, and it's more about focusing on solving people's problems, right?
Yeah, exactly, including your own.
Yeah.
You're not just solving the seller's problem, you're selling your problem, whether it be, lack of money, lack of credit, whatever it is. Usually there's ways to solve both sides of the table's issues.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a matter of basically knowing how and who can work with you to solve the problem.
Yeah, because one thing I noticed out there is people have this notion that somehow if they're winning, somebody else is losing.
Right.
But that's not the case at all. What we like to go for here is like win-win scenarios where like we all, tell me if you disagree with this, but we like to focus on like win-win scenarios where we all bring each other up and we all, help each other out, because that's I think where real success starts happening.
It happens all the time where we're in a deal and maybe we're bringing the idea to somebody else and they're telling us, hey, I think we can, basically take advantage of this person. And I'm like, that's not what we want to do.
That's not cool.
I would rather have everybody get what's going to work best for them. And a lot of times you can make that happen. It's it's just a matter of looking at each person, each scenario, each situation differently and saying, okay, how can I make this work for everybody?
Sure. Can you tell us about like a specific deal that you had done, maybe like in your beginning years as a real estate investor, where like you made money, you solved your problems, and also helped somebody get out of their real estate issues? Can you think, does a deal jump out to you?
Yeah, well, there's lots of them. I mean, some of the first deals that we did, we didn't have any money or credit, so like even when you go to borrow hard money, a lot of times they want some kind of a down payment. So we had a house that we wanted to buy, we didn't have any money, and so I went to the hard money lender, and at the time I didn't know what was a good deal. So I was like, well, okay, I'll use the hard money lenders to determine whether it's a good deal or not by bringing this deal to them. Because I'm like, if they'll lend me the money, then I know it's a good deal. Mm-hmm. So I put together this, idea. Christina actually took it and put together this nice spreadsheet with numbers and everything. And we presented it to the hard money lenders. And they're like, okay, great, but you're going to need, I think it was like $10,000 or $15,000 down.
Which most people don't just have that sitting in the banks.
No, very few people do. But a lot of people would think at that time, well, I don't have the money, so I guess this is dead. Mm-hmm. But what we did was we were like, well, okay, we're looking at a pretty good potential profit here. We'll just find somebody else to put down the down payment. We'll take care of the whole transaction. We'll set everything up. We'll do all the paperwork. We'll do all of that, and we'll offer them a return on their money. In this particular case, what we did was we offered them 50% equity in the deal. Mm-hmm. So I brought in a partner who put up, and I called up a friend basically and said, hey, I got this deal. Are you interested in making some money? And he put up the $15,000, and then we did the rehab. We took care of everything, and when we paid him back all the money that he put in plus a nice profit. And so it was no money out of pocket for us, but we were still able to do the deal. Now, it cost us a pretty good amount of money to do that, but it didn't matter because we established a relationship with the hard money lender and the investor that put up the initial down payment for us, which was an important part. The hard money lenders don't care in most cases where the down payment comes from, whereas in a regular lending situation like a bank, they want to know where all the funds are coming from, and they wouldn't allow you to borrow hard money from somebody or borrow the down payment from somebody else if you're buying like a regular house. Mm-hmm. And so hard money a lot of times is although it's expensive, it's very creative to solve problems when you don't have money and credit and stuff like that.
Sure. So basically you had a fix and flip. You were financing it with hard money, couldn't come up with a down payment, so you had an equity investor involved. Mm-hmm. And you just followed through on everything you did and made the deal work. And what do you think was more valuable to you at the time, getting that fix and flip profit or the relationships you made along the way?
Oh, definitely the relationships, because once we had done a deal successfully with the hard money lenders, they were all about lending us more money. In fact, we started getting calls frequently from other investors who had heard from other people that we were doing successful deals, and they wanted to lend us money. So now, like today, I get calls all the time, people that want to lend us money. Because what a lot of people need to understand if you're getting involved in real estate investing is that there's tons of money out there. That's really not the issue. What people lack is good deals. So if you're good at putting together a good deal, the money will be there as long as it's a good deal. It's kind of like a test to see if you got a good deal, because if you got a good deal, you can get the money. If you don't have a good deal, people are going to be like, nah, I'm not interested or whatever, because they can look at the numbers and say, this isn't so great. Mm-hmm. But and that's where wholesaling kind of came into it.
Sure.
We started realizing, hey, you read the books and they're like, oh, you can probably make $5,000 on a wholesale fee or whatever, and so our first couple of wholesales, that's what we kind of tried to get. Mm-hmm. But then we started realizing, hey, we're getting really great deals here. Like we're offering these houses to people and they're making, $100,000 on the back end. Mm-hmm. There's a lot more room for us to increase our wholesale fees and still give them a great deal where we know they're going to make a nice profit, but also make more ourselves. So we started getting significantly higher wholesale fees, and that really turned things around for us when we started doing a lot more deals that way.
What do you think it was that changed? Was it like a change in your mindset, you think, that made you start getting more for these wholesale deals?
That, and we got really good at getting good deals.
Yeah.
Like, especially in a short sale situation, we got to the point where we were getting numbers that just other people weren't able to get because of some of the techniques that we used to get those deals. And so, although it may seem like sometimes we're getting pretty high wholesale fees, and that might be a little bit like, to some people they're like, oh, because they try to figure out what you bought it for and then try to see if they can, everybody thinks, oh, a wholesale fee is like $5,000. If they think you're buying it for $1 and it's worth $100,000, they want you to sell it to them for $2.
It's like what I just said. If they think that you're making out ahead, they think that they're somehow getting scammed, even though that's not the case at all. They don't look at it as like how it still benefits them. They see that, oh, you're making 30-40 grand on a deal, how am I getting screwed over?
Yeah, and not to be negative about it, I get it. I mean, people are always going to try to look out for their best interest in those cases, but the point is that we were able to get such great prices that we were able to still give the end buyers or the people that were going to rehab the house an excellent deal where they were still making really outstanding profits, and we could still make a great fee on the front end.
Sure.
So we got pretty good at that, and so it very quickly turned around our financial situation. I mean, when I say that we were in trouble, like my house was in foreclosure at the time, I was helping other people solve their foreclosure problems. Mm-hmm. It was really kind of funny. Like the sheriff would bring a notice to me, like to go to court or whatever, and at the same time I'm working with 3 other people trying to figure out what they're going to do about the notice they just got delivered to them. Yeah. And like it was in a way, maybe that was good for me because I got to really live what they're going through. I was getting 100 calls a day from creditors. Like we had tons of credit card debt. It was like, the whole thing. And so I know how people feel when they're going through this process. Mm-hmm. And so maybe that makes me a little bit more relatable sometimes to people, and it helps because I know.
I'm sure they appreciate that, To everybody back home, you don't have to like have that completely dire scenario to like all of a sudden have a shift and like have success. Scott and I are doing this full time, and we have plenty of teachers, and we teach plenty of people to do this stuff. So reach out to either one of us anytime if you have any questions or concerns, But one thing I would like to talk about that I think the viewers would like to hear about is the biggest wholesale deal you ever did. You know which one I'm talking about?
Well, if you're talking about the one that actually ended up, that we closed, there's that one. But there's one that we didn't quite make it, but it was great.
I'm talking about the one you actually closed, I think it was in Falmouth.
Yeah, okay, yeah. That was one that we actually found, and it was a short sale. And during the short sale process, sometimes short sales take months and months and months, sometimes over a year or more. And so during the time that we had the property under contract, what happens is the lender they send over an appraiser, and the appraiser goes through the property, and then they tell the bank what the property is worth. Well, they did their appraisal, but then after they had done their appraisal, the town actually changed their laws on the books, their rule, and we were able to split off an additional lot that wasn't part of the original appraisal. So now all of a sudden it raised the value of the property significantly because we were able to wholesale it to someone who wanted to rehab the existing house that was on the property, but then also they wanted to build on the additional lot. Yep. So we were able to get a $90,000 wholesale fee just for that one thing, just a paper transaction.
Is that one you double closed?
We double closed that because it was a short sale.
So to anybody who doesn't know what happened, he closed on the property in the morning for, let's say, $100,000. 20 minutes later, he sold it to somebody else for $190,000, and you kept that $90,000.
Yeah, and now, like, although to be like completely transparent, like we actually walked away with a $90,000 profit on
Sure.
it. That was the profit. Like
Check made out to you.
right, and
Yeah.
because like when you do a double closing or like a simultaneous closing, is basically what it is. There's fees involved. There's closing costs. You have to buy it and you have to sell it. There's transfer taxes on both sides and all this. But that was our actual walk away profit after those fees. So now, had we been able to just assign the contract to the developer, there wouldn't have been an issue anyways, and we maybe probably would have even made more. But because it was a short sale, there's a little bit of a issue that you have to deal with that.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would be a lot more financially secure if they could walk away with a check for 90 grand.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's amazing.
This process, this whole idea can literally change your life overnight. Like it's just, it's not real, for most people, it's not really about how to do it. Like we could sit here all day and I could tell people, oh, this is what you do step by step by step. It doesn't, that's not gonna really help them because there's a million videos, there's books, there's online courses, there's all this stuff that you can find out how to do wholesaling. Wholesaling is the simplest thing ever. But that's not what holds people back. It's their own limiting beliefs and habits that they, have where they get up every day and do the same thing. And you can introduce something new to somebody, but unless they have some type of belief or some reason to compel them to make the steps or do the things necessary, even though they seem simple, people get in their own way. I did.
Oh, absolutely.
For years I did.
I still do.
Yeah. I still do today. Christina and I are constantly battling with this idea.
So, what do you think it is about you that made you, come over your own limiting beliefs and make you go out and do the things that you needed to do to be successful? What is it that you think?
That's a great question because that is really what it comes down to.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what happened for me, and I kind of explained it already, was that it literally became a necessity. We were, like I said, down to mac and cheese, and I didn't know how I was gonna feed the kids. There was no and that's what it took. That's why I say today that it's a blessing that happened. That I had all this debt and that I ran out of money and that we got into all these financial problems, because I wouldn't have, if lobstering had just stayed okay, I probably would still be doing it today. I mean,
and you'd probably be miserable.
Yeah, it was, it was okay. It just got increasingly more boring to me in a way because it was so repetitive and just going to there's probably a lot of people that will end up watching this that are painters and contractors and stuff, and you're going to a job every day, you're doing the same thing, you don't really see a brighter future.
Yeah, it's like we crave that creativity, that newness, that I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna make a change.
Yeah. So what it comes down to really is your reason for doing it. And for me, it got down to where we literally were hit rock bottom. I mean, there's people that have a lot bigger problems than I had.
Sure.
We didn't have some kind of medical emergency. We didn't have, a death in the family. It wasn't things like that. But it was financial. So we had hundreds of thousands of dollars in credit card debt. Our house was in foreclosure. We just didn't have any money. We were literally living paycheck to paycheck and losing money every time. So it got to the point where we were just we have to do it, or we're going to lose our house and everything and have to completely start over.
Sink or swim.
Yeah,
no
exactly.
pun intended.
So that was the motivating factor. And I think with a lot of people, they have a motivation, but they haven't reached that rock bottom or that necessity, right? Where it becomes it's not. When we were doing these deals back when that was the case, where we literally had no money, I lived and breathed this every day. We were making offers every single day, multiple offers. We were out talking to people, calling buyers, doing everything that you had to do, and there was no question about it. I think now that we're making fairly good money from this, it's even harder now than it was then in a way, because we don't have the same driving force that we had back then.
You're comfortable now.
Yeah, and that's dangerous. Like I have
Yeah.
a coach that I work with, and we talk about that all the time, because it's like, you know, you get to a point where you're like, what's the next level that you really want to go to? Because every level you have to jump through new hoops.
And it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It's not fun. It's not sexy. It's
work.
It's intense. Yeah.
You have to do the work.
Yeah.
Now, the point about real estate, though, in a lot of ways, is that the work is really not that difficult. It is sometimes, like, deals go bad and people freak out and all kinds of crazy stuff happens, but compared to lobstering, it's there's no comparison. When I used to go out on that boat in the middle of the winter, and the boat's icing up and there's waves crashing over my head and I'm freezing, like, just there's no comparison.
Yeah.
But
so, do you have any advice for people who do have that motivation but haven't really gotten to that tipping point yet? Is there anything they can do to help, you know, push themselves into the uncomfortable zone to do the things that they need to do?
Well, certainly I don't recommend that people get themselves to a point where they're at absolute rock bottom, destitute, just to push themselves into doing real estate investing.
It's not fun.
But at the same time, you know, like with us, I read all these books about investing and stuff, and I remember stories about, you know, when you would, you know, have to like burn your ships, you know, so that there was no retreat.
Yeah.
And like with my lobster license, I had a very exclusive lobster license that it wasn't something that I could sell because it's issued by the state, and the only way you can get one is if you know, like in my case, when I was a kid, anybody could get one. But by the time I got to the point where I was ready to stop fishing, they were almost impossible to get. It would take you 10 or 15 years to get the license that I had.
Wow.
So I had to make a decision, like, do I want to renew that license? Because you have to renew it every single year, and it's fairly expensive to renew. I mean, now it doesn't seem expensive to me, but at the time it was an extra, you know, like $1,800 or something for everything I would have had to do to maintain it. And I'm like, I'm never doing this again. I'm just gonna let it go. And I knew there was people on a waiting list just waiting to get a lobster license, and they're waiting for someone like me to just give up my license so that they could have a shot at it. And I was like, I'm never gonna go fishing again. I'm gonna let this go. And Christina was like, really freaking out about that, because that was a big decision.
No.
It was like there was no retreat there, because once I gave it up, I wouldn't be able to go, you know, like I could have maybe bought a federal license or something, but it wouldn't be the same. Like I wouldn't be able to do the things that we had done for the last, basically, you know, I'd done my entire life. That was all I really knew how to do.
Yeah.
And I was basically willing to just give that up. Now, caution, I do not recommend to people that they just quit their job and go for this. Like, although that may work for some people, for a lot of people it's something else. You kind of got to figure out what motivates you and go with that. But when at least you know you have a shot. Like with real estate, I think anybody can do it. And if you don't know how to do it yourself, or if you don't know some piece, there's other people like this, you know, whatever you're putting on here, just as a way for people to learn about real estate investing and see other people that are doing it locally and be able to do the same kind of things. But the opportunity is available for anybody that's willing to do it. I mean, one of the things that I've always been with real estate was that if I didn't know something, I would go find somebody who did.
Yeah.
And today even still, I feel like I'm fairly ignorant about the whole thing.
Oh, sure. It's impossible to know everything out there about your industry. So I think it's more about like having a positive mindset and just having the drive to just go out and get it done. Don't be lazy. Just put in the work. Jump in, you know. I think the saying is just jump in, and before you know it, you'll be like halfway done.
Yeah, and also you get to the point where you're sort of, you realize that if you did try to learn everything that's available to learn about real estate investing, you would spend the next 40 years studying, and you'd still only know about half,
Sure.
if even. So the idea is that every deal is different. So knowing that it's a team sport basically is the key, because like, I'm not downing anybody's courses and stuff like that, but a lot of people spend a lot of money on these courses and things because they feel like they need to learn everything.
Well, and they also make you feel like that you'll only be successful if you keep buying a higher tier programs, which isn't the case at all.
Yeah, and they get into the hundreds of thousands of dollars.
I know, it's crazy. And people pay for it.
Yeah, and for some people, maybe that is what they need.
I agree.
I'm not downing it. Like, if someone needs to spend $100,000 to get to the point where they can make millions, fine. But what happens is a lot of people get into these, and they think that that's what is going to solve the problem for them. So they spend a bunch of money on a course that, if they did what the course said, yeah, they'd make tons of money, but that's not the problem.
Yeah.
The problem is in their own mind. And so I'm a perfect example of this, because for many, many years, I read the books, I took courses, but I wouldn't do it. Yeah. For whatever reason, I just would wake up and do the same thing that I always did. Go out lobstering, make a tiny paycheck, and try to scrape by for years and years.
Oh yeah, I'm the same way. I used to be like that, and I'm getting better about it. You read a book, you go do a course, you fill out everything in the binder, and then you're like, well, where's my money? And then it's like, well, you didn't do anything with that information. You just were sitting there. But yeah, I think the whole point is to just learn, implement. To just get out of your own way and do it.
You gotta be willing to fail.
Yeah.
That was one of the things, I'm glad we're discussing this, because this is what happened to me. I got to the point where, because when you get involved in real estate, you hear about, I'm going to get sued for this and I'm going to get sued for that, because there's a lot of litigation involved in real estate potentially if you make a mistake or something happens. And so I was talking to Christina, and I'm like, we're losing our house. We can barely feed our kids. Everything we have is in default. I don't care if somebody sues me because I don't have anything to take.
Sure.
And that was the moment right then, I think, that we started making offers on properties left and right, because we lost the fear.
Yeah.
Once the fear of making a mistake was gone, that's when the action started.
And then I'm sure that fear never really crept back in, because you saw you were having success and you were like proving yourself wrong about your own limiting beliefs, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because a lot of it is momentum. Once you get a little bit of a win, and then you see, okay, that wasn't so bad, that worked, we made money, then you start doing it again and again and again and again. And all of a sudden, now we're maintaining somewhere around 20 to 30, 35, maybe even 40 deals all the time consistently under contract.
Yeah.
And so to think about doing that back then would be overwhelming to the 10th degree, but now it's pretty manageable. I mean, it's still chaotic all the time. I'm constantly making mistakes. I'm constantly, we're pretty good at putting together these deals, and we have a lot of success, but we lose a lot of deals too. It's just part of the process. It's just
part of the game, man.
And I mean, we try as hard as anybody, I think, to keep these going and to, have it be a win-win scenario for everybody involved. But there are times when deals just don't work out.
Sure. Yeah.
But yeah.
So yeah, some awesome information. So just getting to the last few questions that I like to ask, do you have any reading material that you would recommend to the viewers?
If anybody, the best book on the planet to get started in it's funny because it kind of pertains to real estate, but it's more like a bigger picture book, is Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Yeah.
And I mean, most people would say that if you ask them what book to read. I would say that number one. Some of the classics like Think and Grow Rich and just stuff like that. Because what I found was that I did better when I read more personal development type books rather than how-to books. I mean, you can read books about real estate investing and how to put together deals and stuff, and that's important. But if you don't get your head straight, you can know everything there is to know about putting together deals, but you'll never put one together.
Sure, exactly.
So sales, any books on sales are really important. The Way of the Wolf is a great book.
Oh, I love that one.
Yeah, I mean, there's tons. I have libraries all over the place. I always lend out books to people and stuff because, I mean, that really, I mean, and now with YouTube and stuff, you can just watch endless videos on how to do stuff. And there's tons of videos on personal development too. I mean, Instagram and Facebook and all these have just endless amounts of information.
We're a nation that's drowning in information and starving for wisdom.
Yeah. And that makes a lot of sense because, like I was saying, the information is there. It's free. You don't necessarily need to spend all this money if you, because it's not about the how-to so much. It's more about who you become, the journey, the like the reason why. That was, for me, that was why it had to get to that level. I don't know why, but
who knows?
But that's it.
Yeah. But okay, so if you knew that your kids or your grandkids 10, 20, 30 years from now were going to be watching this, what would you want to tell them?
That's an interesting question.
I know, right?
Well, I mean, I think kids need to decide what they want to do in life. More like, you follow the societal path that's like, oh, go to college, get a degree, all these things, and they push that and push it. I remember in high school, my guidance counselor being, because I said, well, I don't want to go to college. I didn't know what I wanted to do, so there was no reason to go to college as far as I was concerned. It was something I would maybe do once I figured out what I wanted to do. But they were like, oh my God, you have to go to college. If you don't, you're going to end up being a loser. Yeah, it's basically what they said.
It's suffocating.
Yeah. So most people listening to their parents and their peers and everything will follow that path. And a lot of times they end up hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt, end up being able to get a job that makes them $36,000 a year. And it's like this kind of training, this kind of stuff that you're making videos about is exactly, a lot of people will come to one of our RIA meetings or something and they'll say, wow, I just learned more in the last hour than I learned from, years of school or whatever. It's because it's really focused, actual practical information that you can use to go out and change your life tomorrow. There's no time, like you don't have to spend years studying real estate investing. You can go out tomorrow and put together a deal.
Sure, you could find your own deal that's worth 90 grand, tomorrow, today.
And they're out there.
Yeah, so to the viewers back home, if they have any questions or concerns about like where to start or how to do a deal, is it okay if they reach out to you?
Absolutely.
How can they reach out to you?
That's a lot of what we do here at Truck Realty and stuff is we partner with people. We take away the fear, essentially. We'll put our company on the purchase and sale agreement. Maybe the people are partnering with us and we do various splits with up to 50% transactions with people where they can basically use our network, our knowledge. We put together the deals. Basically what they're doing is bringing deals to us or what they think is a deal. We'll help them analyze it. We'll do all the steps necessary to turn it into a profit. And if it results in a profit, then they're going to make money too, just like us. So it works out great for everybody.
Can they reach out to you on Facebook?
Sure. Yeah.
Do you have an Instagram?
I do, but no.
All right, let's just focus on Facebook. I won't put your phone number out there.
Oh, yeah, that's fine too. But Facebook is fine. The RIA site, Southern Maine Real Estate Investors Association, is a good place to reach out to us, and or just call Truck Realty is fine too.
Yep. And I'll put all the links in the bio.
Yeah.
So awesome information, Scott. Thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, Kyle.